If I close my eyes, I can still see the sunlight spilling across our Austin apartment that morning, painting the walls in warm golden hues, like a scene from a movie I wished I was living in. But the air between us? It was cold, sharp, like a blade you don't notice until it's already cut you. James and I sat at opposite ends of our thrift store kitchen table, the one we'd argued over at a flea market because he thought it was rustic, and I thought it was just wobbly. I'd made coffee, French press, strong enough to wake the dead, the way he liked it. The steam curled up from his untouched mug, mocking me. "Mom's coming to stay for a few weeks," he said, eyes glued to his phone, scrolling through something that clearly mattered more than this conversation. I stirred my coffee slowly, buying time to keep my voice steady. "A few weeks?" He shrugged, still not looking up. "And she just needs some space from home, you know how she gets." Oh, I knew. Marie Whitaker wasn't just a mother-in-law, she was a storm dressed in pearls and Chanel. No. 5. The kind of woman who could ruin a perfectly good brunch with a single raised eyebrow. She didn't yell or curse. Her weapons were sharper. Passive-aggressive compliments, strategic silences, and endless comparisons to better women, always delivered with that southern charm that made you feel insane for noticing. And now, she was moving into our 900-square-foot apartment in East Austin. Who I was before her, I'm Emily. 3 years ago I was 28, trying to piece myself back together after quitting a soul-crushing marketing job that had me writing slogans for products I didn't believe in. I'd also just ended an engagement to a man who loved his finance career more than he ever loved me, or anything with a pulse, for that matter. I was bruised but hopeful, running in Zilker Park at a charity 5 when I met James. He was different, or so I thought. He was gentle, the kind of guy who noticed the little things, like how I always ordered oat milk lattes because dairy made me queasy, or how I'd hum Fleetwood Mac when I was nervous. He left post-it notes on the fridge. "You're magic. Don't forget." He remembered the names of the baristas at our favorite coffee shop on South Congress. He made me laugh until my sides ached. We got married 14 months later in a backyard ceremony under a canopy of fairy lights his uncle strung up in his Hyde Park home. I wore my mother's pearl earrings, the only thing I had left of her after she'd passed when I was 19. James cried when I walked down the aisle, his hazel eyes glistening like he'd seen something holy. It felt like a fairy tale. Until Marie arrived with her Louis Vuitton suitcases and her unspoken mission to rewrite my story. Marie, the storm in pearls Marie, rolled into our lives like a hurricane with a manicure. She showed up with 2 oversized suitcases, a cloud of perfume, and an emotional chill that dropped the room by 15 degrees. She didn't say much that first day, just glided through our apartment, her eyes scanning every corner like a real estate agent appraising a fixer-upper. This couch is charming," she said, her voice dripping with sweet disapproval. "Reminds me of my college dorm." James chuckled like it was a joke. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. Over the next few days, Marie didn't just unpack her bags, she unpacked her control. She reorganized my spice rack, tossing out my half-used jar of cumin because it was expired. It wasn't. She replaced our mismatched throw pillows with stiff cream-colored ones that looked like they belonged in a museum. She critiqued my posture. "You slouch, dear, it's aging." My hair-washing schedule. "Every other day is lazy, Emily, and even my job as a freelance graphic designer, so shouldn't just draw on a computer all day?" But the real knife came when I overheard her whispering to James in the living room, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through the thin walls. "Do you ever feel like she doesn't respect your time, darling? I just want what's best for you. She seems scattered. She doesn't cook, not real meals, just quinoa and whatever that was last night. That whatever was my attempt at vegan tacos, which James had eaten 2 servings of. But now, I could feel him slipping. The slipping at first, James pushed back. "She's doing her best, Mom," he'd say. "She works long hours, cut her some slack." But Marie was relentless, her words like water eroding stone. Slowly, James changed. He stopped hugging me when I came home from a client meeting, exhausted but proud of a logo I'd designed. He started checking in with Marie before making decisions we used to make together, like whether we'd go out for dinner or what show to binge on Netflix. He began comparing me to his exes, to his friends' wives, to the impossible standards Marie painted with her honeyed voice. And then came the final blow. Her name was Lindsay. The day it broke, it was a Wednesday, humid and heavy, the kind of day where Austin's heat clings to your skin like regret. James came home early, standing in the doorway like a man about to face a firing squad. His hands were shoved in his pockets, his shoulders hunched. "See, I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice low, like he was confessing a crime. "This marriage, it's not working." Floor shifted under me, like the earth itself was pulling away. "What are you talking about?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm not happy. I'm not happy. Mom sees it. Everyone sees it." I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was so absurd it felt like a fever dream. "I mean, your mother sees it." "The same woman who's been trying to replace me since the moment she walked in here." He flinched, his jaw tightening. "This isn't about her." "Bullshit," I snapped, my voice cracking like glass. "And you let her." He looked away, his silence louder than any words. Then, quietly, like he was afraid of the truth, he said, I think Lindsay and I have something real." And just like that, my fairy tale shattered. 2 days later, James moved out. Marie helped him pack, folding his shirts with the precision of a woman who'd won a war. Lindsay was there too, offering him soft smiles and a hand on his arm that made my stomach churn. I stood in the doorway, watching them load his boxes into a U-Haul, my mother's pearl earrings heavy in my hands. I didn't cry, not then. But as their taillights disappeared down the street, I felt something inside me break. Not just my heart, but the version of me who believed love could conquer anything. The silence after James left wasn't the worst part. It was the noise in my head. The questions that haunted me at 2:00 a.m., slinking into the shower with me, curling up in bed like unwanted guests. Was I really that hard to love? What if I'd cooked better meals, been less scattered? Why did he choose her? They weren't just thoughts. They were accusations, each one a knife twisting deeper, and for months I let them live rent-free in my mind. The fall, for the first 2 months, I was a ghost in my own life. I'd get up, shower, choke down a piece of toast and drag myself to client meetings, pasting on a smile that felt like a lie. At night, I'd collapse on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd gone from a woman who laughed at James' terrible puns to someone who couldn't remember what joy felt like. The apartment was a museum of our marriage. His favorite coffee mug sat untouched in the cabinet. The fairy lights from our wedding still hung on the balcony, mocking me. I couldn't bring myself to take them down. The spark, the shift came on a random Tuesday at a coffee shop on South Lamar. I'd ordered my usual oat milk latte, but the barista handed me someone else's drink. A complicated espresso mocha almond milk disaster that tasted like a dessert exploded. I took a sip before realizing the mistake and burst out laughing, right there in the middle of the cafe. It wasn't just a chuckle, it was a real, gut-deep laugh. The kind I hadn't felt in months. A woman at the next table turned and grinned. "You okay?" I nodded, still giggling. "So I think I might be." It was the first moment I realized there was still a person underneath the grief, a person who could laugh at a stupid coffee mix-up, who could still find light in the mess. Therapy and the work of reclamation. My best friend Jenny, a graphic designer with a mouth like a sailor and a heart like a saint, had had enough of my sleepwalking. "Grief counseling, not negotiable," she texted, along with an address and time. I went, mostly to shut her up. Karina, my therapist, was a 40-something Latina with eyes that saw through your bullshit and a calm that made you want to spill your secrets. She didn't ask me how I felt or feed me platitudes. Instead, she asked, "Who were you before James?" I froze. I didn't have an answer, and that scared the hell out of me, so we started there. Week after week, Karina helped me peel back the layers of who I'd become. Someone who'd bent herself into knots to please a man and his mother. We talked about my childhood, my mother's death from breast cancer when I was 19, and how I'd spent years trying to fill that void with people who didn't deserve me. Karina called it a trauma bond, my need to cling to James because he felt like safety, even when he wasn't. Austin reborn. I started small. I went back to biking the trails along Lady Bird Lake, wheezing through the first 3 miles like a chain smoker at a marathon, but I kept going. Each ride felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The Emily who loved the burn in her legs, the wind in her hair, the way the city skyline looked at dusk. I gutted the apartment. I donated the wedding dress, tossed every towel and plate that James had touched, and replaced Marie's stiff pillows with bright, mismatched ones from a market on South Congress. I hung new fairy lights, ones that were mine, not ours. It was like exhaling after holding my breath for a year. Then came the bookstore. I'd been walking down South Congress when I saw a "Help Wanted" sign in the window of a tiny indie shop called Dog-Eared Pages. I didn't need the job, freelancing was paying the bills, but something about working among stories felt right. Stories, after all, are where you go when you need to rewrite your own. The letters I never sent. Karina gave me an assignment one week. Read James a letter, don't send it, just write what you're still carrying. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one where he dropped the bomb, and filled pages with words I'd never said. "And you let your mother destroy our marriage. She replaced me like I was a piece of furniture. And the worst part? I still miss you sometimes, and I hate myself for it." I poured out every ounce of rage, hurt, and shame. Then I took the letter to the sink, lit a match, and watched it burn. The flames didn't fix everything, but the ashes felt honest. For the first time, I wasn't carrying him anymore. The grapevine whispers. 6 months after the divorce, I started hearing things. Jenny, who still knew some of James' friends, filled me in over margaritas at Guero's Taco Bar. Apparently, James' perfect marriage to Lindsay wasn't so perfect. Marie had moved in with them, big surprise, and Lindsay wasn't as compliant as Marie had hoped. "Hey, she's talking about separation," Jenny said, sipping her drink. "And said she's tired of living with a mother-in-law who acts like she owns the place." I didn't laugh, I didn't cheer, but I felt a quiet clarity. You can't fix a broken person by putting them in a prettier cage. The knock at the door. It was 7:42 p.m. on a Thursday, 9 months after the divorce. I was folding laundry, watching a baking show on mute, not thinking about James for once. Then came the knock. I opened the door, and there he was, disheveled, pale, like a man who'd just woken up from a long bad dream. His hair was longer, his eyes sunken, his flannel shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Emily?" he started, his voice cracking. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape. "So I'm sorry," he said. "I shouldn't be here, but I didn't know who else to turn to." Part of me wanted to scream, part of me wanted to slam the door. But most of me wanted to know, why now? The reckoning. James sat at the kitchen table, in the exact spot where he told me he was leaving. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. His hands were clasped tightly, like he was afraid they'd betray him if he let go. "She's gone," he said, staring at the table. "Lindsay, I'm sent for and filed for divorce. Said she was tired of living with 2 people, me and my mother." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, my silence louder than any words. "I was tired too," he continued. "I just didn't know it yet." He told me he'd started therapy, cut off Marie after she tried to guilt him into staying with Lindsay, moved out to crash with a friend in North Austin. "See, I miss you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I miss you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Not just the marriage, you." And then he broke, really broke, not a few tears but a full collapse, his shoulders shaking, his face buried in his hands. "I didn't protect you. I became the man I swore I'd never be. And I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't move, I didn't comfort him. But I listened, because part of me needed to hear it, not for him, but for me." The fire was out, but the smoke remained. I told him I needed time. He nodded, stood, and left without another word. When the door closed, I collapsed on the couch, my mind spinning. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep either. Not because I wanted him back, but because I couldn't recognize the version of me who'd once needed his love to feel whole. The next morning I called Jenny. "He showed up," I said, my voice flat. She didn't miss a beat. "Tell me you didn't let him sweet-talk you back into his mess." "No," I said, and I meant it. "But I need to figure out what this means." Marie's last jab. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. "James is lost without me. Don't think you can fix him." No signature, but I knew it was Marie. Her voice was unmistakable, even in text, sharp, smug, like she was still pulling strings from afar. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the text to James with a single line, "Your mom's still playing games." He replied within minutes, "I blocked her. I'm done." Saying done. I didn't know if I believed him, but I didn't need to. His battles weren't mine anymore. The confrontation. A month later, I saw Marie, not planned, not wanted, Just bad luck at a farmer's market on South Congress. She was there, all pearls and pressed linen, holding a basket of overpriced peaches like she was auditioning for a lifestyle magazine. She saw me and froze, her smile tightening. "Emily," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "And you look, well." I could have walked away, I could have nodded and let her keep her power, but I was done with that. "Marie," I said, stepping closer, my voice steady, "I don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to slink into my life and play puppet master. You broke your son, you broke my marriage, and I'm not your punching bag." Her eyes widened, her grip on the basket tightening. "No, I was only trying to help James." "No," I cut her off. "You were trying to control him, and me, but I'm not your project, and he's not your toy." The crowd around us slowed, heads turning, but I didn't care. For the first time, I saw her for what she was, a small, desperate woman clinging to power she didn't deserve. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding, my spine straight. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. James's redemption, or lack thereof. James texted me a few weeks later, asking to meet. I agreed, but not at my apartment. We met at a coffee shop on East 6th, neutral ground. He looked better, less haunted, more grounded. He'd been in therapy for months, he said, working through the ways Marie had shaped him into someone who couldn't stand up for himself. "See, I don't expect you to take me back," he said, stirring his coffee. "I just want you to know I see it now, how I failed you. How I let her control me." I nodded, sipping my latte. "I'm glad you're figuring it out, but I'm not your savior, James. I'm not here to fix you." He looked down, his jaw tight. "I know. I wanted to say I'm sorry, for real." I believed him, but it didn't change anything. A year after the divorce, I was different. Not better, not worse, just me. I'd started teaching art classes at a community center in East Austin, showing kids how to turn their messy emotions into something beautiful. I'd adopted a scruffy terrier mix named Biscuit, who chewed my shoes but made me laugh every day. I'd even gone on a few dates, not looking for a fairy tale, just enjoying the company of people who didn't carry Marie's shadow. Jenny threw me a divorce anniversary party at her house in Bolden Creek, complete with a piñata shaped like a wedding cake. We laughed until we cried, swinging at it with a broomstick until candy spilled across the lawn. It was silly, but it was freedom. The epilogue. Lady Bird Lake. Some mornings, I'd bike to Lady Bird Lake before dawn, watching the sunrise paint the water gold. I think about the girl I was, the one who thought love meant bending until she broke. She deserved better. I carry her with me now, but not as a weight, as a reminder. I don't hate James. I don't hate Marie. Hate takes too much energy, and I'm saving mine for the life I'm building. The one where I'm the author, not the supporting character. And that's my revenge.